Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica.
Good night, good evening, we're listening, watching from around the world and the Eastern Caribbean. Welcome to another episode of the Mek Wi Talk program with yours truly, Jeffrey Tavares. Good night to everyone in the Jamaican diaspora and around the world. Tonight we're going to speak to Professor Rosalea Hamilton. She's going to come to us to speak about Hurricane Melissa, Lessons for Constitutional Reform. She wrote an article in the Jamaica Glean, and I find it very fascinating. We're going to have her to come on and speak to us about it. We go up from 7 until 8 o'clock. We don't go beyond that. Tonight is a beautiful Monday night from the Lantern Bright of Negril Point to Morant Point in the east. The Jamaicans in the western part of the country is facing As I said on this program before, a humanitarian crisis is looming in this country. When I said to other people that Jamaica is facing a humanitarian crisis, they said to me, I must have said. See, I run the breaking news that the Minister of Health, Dr. Tufton, has confirmed that leptospirosis has broken out in Jamaica. Those people of the parliament of this country believe that they mustn't take any advice from the common man. The common man who put them there. The common man who allowed them to sit in the parliament. Because we don't have the education that they have. And some of them don't have an education. Some of them don't have no degree at all. But those are the people put in the parliament to make laws for the people of this country. We're facing a crisis because of Hurricane Melissa. It's going to take a long time for all of us to build back. My question tonight is, we await the arrival of Professor Rosalea Hamilton. My question tonight to the people of this country: why is it that when the hurricane hit Jamaica, in the aftermath of the hurricane, the Prime Minister of this country never called or addressed the nation and called for a day of prayer? Jamaica need a comforting chief, not a dividing chief. Our people need someone to comfort them. And are we going to allow the people of Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth to live in the open air? The night dew, mosquito biting them. We have been calling on the Prime Minister of this country and this program to evacuate the Jamaican people from those areas. It goes on deaf ears. What lesson have we learned from Hurricane Melissa? As what Dr. Rosalea Hamilton has put in her article in the Jamaica Gleaner, lessons from Hurricane Melissa calls for constitutional reform. The Prime Minister refused to address the nation. At a time like this country needs someone to comfort the people. But the Prime Minister could have sent the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade to the G20 summit and stay back here to comfort the people of this country. Many of our fellow citizens will be left out into the dark this Christmas, into the open of the element of the night. Many of our Jamaican citizens won't have a nice Christmas dinner. And I wonder how these people who call themselves leaders of this country, how do they sleep at nights? How do they really sleep at nights? How do they lay their head down on their pillow and really sleep? How do they take up a plate of food to eat when the people who put them in the parliament, majority of them don't have anywhere to sleep? The people of Westmoreland, many of them don't have not even get a care package. Today I got a call from someone in the St. Elizabeth area. They don't have anything down there. And this is the country that we claim that we love, and we put poor people first in this country. I have with me, joining me pretty soon, is Professor Rosalea Hamilton, one of Jamaica's daughter of the soil, who continue to fight for poor people in this country. Jamaica need a comforting chief. And the Prime Minister had the opportune time to address the nation and comfort the people of this country. He did not do so. He did not do so. My fellow Jamaicans, we have a lot of questions to ask. Are we going to get the answers? They have a telethon last night. How many of the 32 members of parliament donate something towards helping the people of this country? How many parliamentarians, both past and present, donate $1 million to help the people of this country? Without further ado, let me welcome Professor Rosalea Hamilton. Professor Hamilton, welcome to the program.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I know it's a bit late where you are, so yes. I won't chat off my mouth too long. You wrote an article in the Gleaner, Hurricane Melissa, Lessons Learned for Constitutional Reform. Talk to us about that, Professor Hamilton.
Well, let me just say that, this is a tough time for all of us. Those in government who are leading the charge, and those of us in the philanthropic world that are providing whatever relief we can. It includes members of the diaspora that has come out and responded in tremendous fashion, whether through barrels or physically coming home to make sure that, their loved ones and the people they're concerned about from the communities they're from is being addressed. And I commend everybody for the effort that we've had. And I know that there are civil servants that are working very hard and, doing a lot. So I want to say that up front, because this is a troubling time for all of us in the nation. And one has to be careful about, statements or positions that discourage and dishearten those who are doing their best. Having said that, what I try to do in the article is to show that if we look carefully at what's happening, we can see the flaws and the limitations of a structure of government that was never designed to meet the needs of the average Jamaican, to meet the needs of Jamaicans up in the hills of Hanover and Trelawney, those right now who are suffering disproportionately, I would say, from the impacts of Hurricane Melissa. And so it's a time for us to reflect as we think about the way forward. And many of us are thinking now, coming out of the immediate relief phase. We're still in that relief phase because there's still people who need help and basic help. But I think that those of us who've been on the ground and have been going into communities, we see that the real cry now among many people is a stability in their lives and the capacity to earn and to live what one could consider a normal life, given this abnormality that they're going through. And so the question is, what should normal look like? What should Build Back Better look like? What should the strategic thinking going forward look like? And that was my motivation for writing this article at this time, as some of us are beginning to think about the next steps after immediate relief. And I suggest that in the article, that one of the things we have to begin to talk about and discuss is changes to the current structure of government in a way that can make a difference to the lives of Jamaicans as we go forward. as we go forward in a future where we know the science has told us that there'll be more frequent and intense climate events, that Hurricane Melissa will be the norm going forward. And it's a very difficult reality to face. And I think up to now, there may have been skeptics who, okay, we hear about climate change and we get hurricanes or we get floodings and stuff, but we'll survive and move on. I think some people are now rethinking that, is it so easy to pick up the pieces and move forward? Today, we're talking about climate refugees. People who are so significantly impacted that they have to go elsewhere. There's a lot of internal migration now to Kingston. A lot of family members are, putting up relatives and friends from the affected communities. And so, and of course, there have been appeals internationally. I know in the US and in the UK, there's been, legislators looking at, immigration status for people who are supposed to leave and, keeping them there for a while, or bringing loved ones into these countries as a way to at least temporarily respond to this tragedy. And so a lot is on the table. And in summary, what my article sought to do is to bring the attention to the fact that perhaps the most important thing we need to do to better prepare for hurricanes like Melissa in the future, and to prepare for the kind of climate challenges that we have ahead, is a decentralized approach to our structure of government that can be more granular in its responsiveness, in its preparation phase, and very importantly, in the information flow that's required to effectively respond. And so we ought not to be hearing about piecemeal information about where the damage is and how people are being impacted. We ought to have a system of government from the ground up, from communities into local government, into central government. And that kind of very seamless interconnection of representation and information flow will make a big difference in our capacity to respond in the future. And I suggest finally that this has to be part of the constitutional reform discussions going forward. There's a lot that we can do without constitutional reform, but in the final analysis, the highest and most significant law of the land is the Constitution. And we ought to ensure that the framework we put in place in a more decentralized approach to governance and government ought to be entrenched in our Constitution. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, Professor. Sorry.
Yes.
I muted the mic and didn't realize it at all. I'm sorry. Yes. I was saying that your article also note that the Prime Minister relies on the MPs and even journalists for critical information. What does this say about the critical information gap in our nation when it comes on to emergency response system, the emergency response system?
Well, I think it's obvious. I think that is evidence that there is an information flow problem. Mm-hmm. And if you don't design a system that can enable the kind of information flow from every citizen, it is possible. From every citizen has representatives in government. That's who our councillors are at the micro level. Mm-hmm. The councillors are there representing communities throughout the country. Our MPs are there representing constituencies, right? And so together there is adequate representation that we can get into the granular spaces. No, if we're not granular enough with respect to the geographic location of the constituencies and the divisions in which the councils represent, then let's get community villages going, right? There are communities across Jamaica in which half, if not most, of the community members are members of a family. So it's not hard to find people in every community. These communities are not simply places on a map. You know, I heard that discussion going and I was like, wow, these are not places on a map. These are people, their lives, their husbands, their wives, their children. They exist in Jamaica, in remote communities, and they're connected to churches, and they're connected to schools, and they're connected to people who can account for them. And I'm suggesting that we need that mechanism in place so that every single citizen has a chance to be heard and a chance to be protected. That's where we must move to.
Professor Hamilton, I want to ask you something that you didn't write that in the article at all. But I'm going to go back to the article. But I'll say this to you because I've been saying this on this platform from ever since Hurricane Melissa came. You remember the days of the Public Works Department? One would have believed that when the Public Works Department was in existence, they didn't have to wait on central government to come down. They start clearing roads and everything. Right now, some of the roads haven't been cleared because they have to rely on Mass Joe backhoe and to pay Mass Joe to use his backhoe. When the government at that time has their own system, their own machinery, and one would suggest that maybe the JDF should have system like equipment like those to deploy around the country to clean up places. Because if the Stephen Shaw and his crew is taking such a long time to do it, then maybe they should have something like that. Let me go back to a part in the article that you wrote. Do you believe central government is lack of a management system in which they can rely on, Professor, for all the parishes?
Well, I don't think it's so much a management system. I think it really does boil down to power, the power to make decisions and the power to command resources. Let me come back to your earlier point about the backhoe and so on and so on. Let's be clear that the first responders during the hurricane and immediately after were neighbors in communities. Yes. Let's be very, very clear about that. And so the life and death issues about who survives during that hurricane was left in the hands of people in the communities. And they did a very good job because you hear the reports talking about, which bar they went to for protection, which house they went to for protection, what food they got in the immediate aftermath. It was from neighbors, right? It was from farmers who were able to, survive of what little crop they had left, right? It was neighbors who managed to have stocked up and could share what little they had. That's what happened. And so the capacity of a community to come together to make important life-saving decisions is evident. I think we ought to have no doubt that that same community can, before a hurricane, make important decisions to save their lives, as they have demonstrated during and after. And so I want to just recall very quickly for you something I saw on the television, the TVJ News reporting a community in which I recall seeing it on the television, where a woman came and she said, listen, look what we've been able to do. We've been able to go to Mr. So-and-so, and he had a chainsaw, and this one used some cutlass, and this one and so on, and they had trucks and so on. All the community came together and cleared the roads. That's what that woman said, right? And she said, listen, I am begging you, I'm begging the government, I just want one tractor, because the trees fell in the road and their limited capacity in terms of what they were able to put together was not enough to move that log, that tree, that they needed a tractor. and they were begging one tractor. And I thought about it and I said, what if that community, in the preparation leading up to Melissa, and I would want to suggest the preparation is months before, not days and weeks before, because we know that these hurricanes are going to come, right? What if that community had among its resources that it could deploy a tractor? Tractor is not a hard thing to procure, right? And I can say, with the help of a vibrant diaspora community as we have in Jamaica, it is not inconceivable that every community could have a tractor at its disposal, managed by that community. And therefore, the speed at which that community could get help would not simply depend on central government's capacity to move a tractor in, or the JDF for that matter, because they have within their resources and their capacity and their decision-making power to get a tractor. That would have made a huge difference to women who were pregnant that had to get to a hospital very quickly, to people who are disabled who need extra help, to the elderly who needed medicine and so on. All of that could have happened very quickly if that community had one tractor.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to. It boils down to fairly simple things that communities can determine that they need to protect themselves. That power to make that decision ought not to lie in central government, in the cabinet. It ought to lie with the people that are most impacted. And in collaboration with the local government, they ought to be able to access the resources that they need, including the capacity to raise funds and resources outside of Jamaica, especially with our diaspora, who has demonstrated their capacity to help, right? These communities could have been ready and ought to be ready for the next hurricane if we understand the importance and the imperative of this issue of how we restructure government. And I think that coming out of this hurricane, for me, who's been spending a lot of time talking about constitutional reform, I do think that this issue ought to trump all others. A lot of people have been caught up in discussions about whether we should elect a head of government or not. I ask those people who are concerned about things, how will an elected or nominated head of government make a difference in this crisis? Okay? And if the answer is very little, I suggest that we have to focus and have as priority this matter of how we decentralize government, how we make government, bring government closer to the people and their lives and the issues that impact them, empower them to make these critical decisions so that they can have a better response to and thrive better in similar climate events in the years to come.
You spoke about in your article, Professor Hamilton, local government empowerment. Talk to us some more about that.
Well, you know, I want to start where I like to start, which is the local government website. If you go there, you will see that the vision of the local government is, and the Ministry of Local Government's vision is autonomy for local government. And if we examine the word autonomy, it is fundamentally about the capacity of local government to rely on itself to provide the kind of services and address the needs of the locality that they serve. So if we start there, the question we have to ask is, what does more autonomy mean? Or perhaps I should say, what does autonomy mean? Because right now, they are highly dependent on central government for resources and, importantly, decision-making power. Okay? Now, I think that the idea of how we rethink local government is they ought to really be facilitating the needs of communities. They ought to be responding to the community's desires and wants with respect to what they see fit for their own community development.
Yes.
And so to think about government now, local government as empowering a network of community organizations and community, if you like, community government, if you like, right? Where the communities ultimately can make some decisions and other decisions that has to be made by the local government, that they can be a part of informing and sharing information so that the local government can make better decisions. And that kind of relationship is what I think ultimately we need to be able to do so that people have a say in their communities with respect to their needs and wants. And similarly, the local government will, wearing their regulatory hat and wearing their coordinating hat, can look at the needs of the cluster of communities that they have responsibility for, and jointly make decisions. And then ultimately, those decisions can be fed up to the central government with respect to the scale of resources or the kinds of decisions that would, for example, include international negotiations and stuff like that, right? And then you have a clear role for central government to do things on behalf of the nation as a whole that no one community or no one local government can do, right? But so it has to be a kind of relationship that's shaped by critical information flow that ultimately addresses the needs of every single citizen. You know, we have UN treaties where we talk about the rights for self-determination. That's ultimately what this is about. And this is a struggle that our foreparents have fought for decades. Since emancipation, the fight has been for self-determination, having come out of a society in which the enslaved people could not determine anything about their lives, right? They were property, right? And once you move from that era where your humanity was at least recognized in principle, although it took years, and it's still taking years for us to be recognized as full human beings. As long as racism exists in the world, we still have an issue struggling for some people to see us as human beings, equal to everybody else. So that's a long struggle. And the idea of self-determination is that we ought to have a say in our future, in what we want, how we want to live. And so I think this is a turning point for Jamaica. It's an important moment where we have to step back and ask ourselves, how do we want to live? What is the structure of government that is most appropriate to meet our needs? And I suggest that it cannot be a structure that worked for the colonial government, that did not change fundamentally at independence. Our constitution did not change with respect to the structure of government. And we made decisions that entrenched this centralized approach to governance. And I suggest it is when we look again at how a redesigned approach to that structure of government in the modern day that addresses our contemporary issues, it is when we begin to do that, we will begin to restructure government in a way that can enable the self-determination that I've mentioned, as well as the capacity to protect ourselves against climate events, and ultimately the capacity to lift our standard of living so that we can all be better off, so that many people who are leaving Jamaica on droves on an annual basis don't have to go to countries that don't want them. That we can stay in Jamaica and live with decency, live with the kind of capacity to provide for our families that we all want.
For those who are just joining us, we're speaking to Professor Rosalea Hamilton. She wrote an article in the Jamaica Gleaner, Hurricane Melissa, Lesson Learned for Constitutional Reform. Professor Hamilton, you spoke about before I go there, you also said in this that Dr. Hamilton suggests that communities should have the authority to develop their own system. In what way are you saying that? I mean, you spoke about the structure of the community and so forth, and they making their own decisions. Do you think that under our present system that will ever happen?
Well, again, I've suggested that we have to change the structure of government. We have to decentralize. Let me make another point about that whole process.
Yeah.
The design of local government was simply, back in the day when it was designed initially in the 1800s, was really to set up a framework in which there was poor relief. Some people may know that local government started in the vestries of the Anglican Church, right? And it was the mechanism in which, poor relief was distributed.
Something I didn't know about that, Professor Hamilton. It's something new
yes,
to me.
Yes, do the research, because that's where it started. Yeah. And it was a welfare system to meet the needs of poor people, a majority of people at the time who were poor, enslaved. And it was a mechanism to help them to meet and deal with certain local issues, the parochial roads and, garbage collection and so on and so on. But it was all designed to support the central colonial arrangement in which the British and, of course, the royal family was part of that whole arrangement, right? Now, if you track the changes to today, you see that the structure had not changed significantly. Over the years, you had legislation that widened the power of local government to do more, to look at, infirmaries and, do poor relief and all of that stuff. But the significant change came in 2015, when for the first time, the local government was recognized in the Constitution. Now, again, that speaks volumes, right? That we're talking about a system that was set up in the 1800s, and it took only until 2015 for local government to be recognized as a structure of government, as a part of government in 2015. Okay.
Wow.
And what it did was simultaneously put 3 pieces of law in place. And those laws had to do with, strengthening local government, streamlining the management of local government, and so on. And importantly, the section that I mentioned in the article, which is section 2(4)(a) of the Constitution Amendment Local Government Act, that particular provision speaks to the community's participation in local government, speaks very specifically to local communities having a say in local government, right? But there are no institutional arrangements set up for that. In fact, local communities, as the term that's used in the Act, is not defined. What exactly are these borders and boundaries of these communities? And how should they be defined, and so on? That is still, I think, work to be done. And if we want to empower these communities, and I'm suggesting we need to give them rights, the rights to have a say in the decision-making process, then those rights have to be clearly detailed and put in the Constitution as part of our Chapter 3 in the Constitution that lays out rights for the country. There are no community rights there. Right? And I suggest that want to give communities rights, then that has to be in the Constitution.
Because there's a part in the article that says that the authorities the author urge that meaningful discussion must be had of constitutional reform. Do you agree that Jamaica's constitution is outdated in this regard of time? And
Of
why?
course, and that's exactly my point, that it is
Right.
outdated because, let's back up. There are two things that most constitutions do, two main things. It speaks to rights and responsibilities and, human rights, protections, etc. Right? And that's what we did. That perhaps is the most significant change we've made to our constitution since independence. And that was done in 2011 when we redefined and rewrote effectively Chapter 3 of our Constitution. But the other part of what constitutions do is to lay out the structure of government. So it talks about the legislature, it talks about, the head of state, it talks about the cabinet and the roles and responsibilities, etc. But so that structure has not changed. We've done very little, if any, significant changes to how we envision the structure of government. For example, we have perpetuated an appointed Senate. We've not changed that, right? So, we've done things like, change the boundaries and they change the number of MPs and so on and so on. But in terms of substantive changes around the structure, we've not done anything significant. And I'm suggesting that has to change. Just a basic kind of common sense. It can't make sense that a structure of government worked for the colonial arrangements and can still work today to meet the needs of the majority of Jamaica. Because it was never designed to meet the needs of at the time of the design of the Constitution prior to our independence, right? The majority of Jamaicans were either enslaved or just coming out of slavery. So the system was never set up for them. It was set up to perpetuate the interests of a few. All right. So now that we are past independence and we recognize that the constitutional arrangement has not changed, that lays out that structure of government, right? It hasn't changed significantly. It is time to ask and answer the question, what is the appropriate structure of government we need to address the needs of the majority of people at this time?
Yes. You spoke also about lessons learned, because we're in the constitutional reform part of the article that you wrote. You also spoke about the Westminster system versus the Jamaican reality. Speak to us some more about that.
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of misconception that what we have is a Westminster model of the Constitution. It's a misconception because what happened in 61 when the founding fathers were debating what kind of constitution to set up and what powers to give, for example, the prime minister, there was a very lively debate that suggested that centralized power and the power of the prime minister should be recognized and seen as the dominant approach to that structure. That's in it. The conversations came down to that. We had actual discussions, and it's there in the Hansard about, whether the prime minister had too much power. And the whole idea of a, parliamentary dictatorship and, this over centralization of power in the hands of the prime minister was evident from 1961. And perhaps the best way to think about the difference of a parliamentary system and the system that we have is the fact that you have a legislator, say in Britain, where they actually have a Westminster system, that the legislator, and let's be clear what that means in terms of its composition, it means the majority of the winning party MPs are making up that legislature, right? And they can, in fact, move a prime minister. And they can do it because there is a clear, although the executive is fused, meaning executive play a dual role in parliament, they're both legislators and act as the executive. There is an important check and balance with respect to the oversight that is very active and live in the Westminster model that will move a prime minister if there is even the idea of abuse of power. And we saw it, for example, with Boris
Johnson.
Sorry?
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson during COVID.
Yes.
Right?
Professor.
So I'm just making the point very simply there that although we have a provision, very important to note that we have a provision in our constitution where the legislator, through a vote of no confidence, can move our prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the structure is set up, it will never happen.
Oh, because I was gonna touch on a point that is before the court now. With Buchanan, is it Buchanan versus Holness with his seat in Central St. Andrew, where the PNP candidate is taken to court, and if the court should rule come December 8th, if the court should rule in the favor of the candidate, the caretaker, the prime minister would have to step down as MP and as prime minister.
Yeah, well, but that's slightly different. That's different than what I was saying. However, you're right. That is what would have to happen to the extent that the electoral issue there, which is really about a vote count and so on, right? If that was deemed to be not legitimate, then that's an issue with respect to him stepping down in that seat. But there would be quickly arrangements that would be put in place to get him either another seat or get him reinstated or something. I don't expect it to create a significant constitutional crisis other than a temporary problem. You put a deputy prime minister in place, you work out a seat for the prime minister, and the prime minister will be back. So this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about effective oversight. Right now, there is no possibility of effective oversight in our parliament because of the number of parliamentarians that are in the executive. Remember, what you want when you do oversight is to examine the work of the executive. That's what the oversight role is. That the legislators, the non-executive members of parliament, right, in their capacity as legislators, ensure that all the implementation of the law is done according to law. That's what it boils down to. And so the lawmakers are coming together and said, okay, did you execute according to the law? And if the answer is no, then they take a decision.
Right. Can I ask you a question? Let's go back to something that you said, that if the case, the deputy prime minister is put in place, but there's nothing in the constitution that speaks about. You want to get some water, Professor? Go ahead and get some water. I'll just bring you back on. Go ahead and get some water. Okay, Professor, you unmute your mic. You spoke about the deputy prime minister put in place if something like that happened to the prime minister, but there's no way in the constitution speak about a deputy prime minister, Professor.
No, but again, these are decisions that can be made. It doesn't invalidate the role, and it's someone who can act. There are provisions in the constitution with respect to an acting prime minister, so it's not an issue.
You also spoke about in your article, Professor Hamilton, about the let's see here, hold on there for me, the politics will and the way forward. Talk to us about that. The will of the politics and the way forward in this country, where Jamaicans right now, we have been divided for many years, and we're still divided. Talk to us about the politics will and the politics moving forward, and the will moving forward.
Well, I do think that for significant changes to take place, it has to come from the people of Jamaica. I think quite frankly, I will say this, that there are parliamentarians who are not happy with the system. There are parliamentarians who want to change it. But you're kind of in the throes, you're in the middle of a dysfunctional kind of structure of government. And it's hard to make changes when there are some of your colleagues who may not want to make changes. So there's a diversity of views, I would say, on both sides of the fence with respect to what is appropriate and what isn't. I do think, for example, there are parliamentarians who do support a decentralized approach to governance going forward. In fact, if you look at the manifestos of both political parties, they talk about participatory governance. Now, there would not be a lot of talk about participatory governance if we had it. We don't have participatory governance, right? I mean, one could get into the details of what that means. Participatory governance is not simply, organizing a meeting or a town hall for that matter and have people talk and then you go ahead and make the decisions the way you want to make them anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's a more formal kind of approach in which, people's views are documented, their submissions made. In the final analysis, yes, we have elected representatives to make decisions on our behalf. And so the representatives will make decisions. But there's a kind of, information sharing and information flow that ensures that the information is at least analyzed, taken account of. They can be dismissed, but the process ensures that kind of information exchange takes place and is recorded. And therefore, if people ignore it and it's good advice, then you ignore it at your peril because, down the road, people will say, well, our community presented this as the way forward and you ignored it. Right? So those kinds of mechanisms, I think, needs to be worked out. We've argued that we need a petitioning process. And it's when you petition, both as individuals or communities for that matter, you can have a say in a formal way in terms of trying to influence the decisions that parliamentarians make.
You also spoke about in the article, Professor Hamilton, what role should the Jamaican people play in pushing for constitutional reform and empowerment of communities? Talk to us some more about that.
Yes, well, let me say this. I think it starts right here, right now, in terms of what we're doing. We're having this conversation. I think if Jamaicans listening think that this is an important conversation, think that we ought to, bring these kinds of issues in the constitutional reform conversation, then I think that there are many mechanisms, write your MP, write the Prime Minister, make your voice heard with respect to these issues. I think it starts there. And I think the more Jamaicans feel strongly that this is a way to go. These are just broad strokes. There are lots of details to fill out. And all of us, I think, if we put our minds to it, can work out the details so that we can get a more effective structure. And it's important to say to listeners who are listening, because, we all listen with different ears, that this is not about the JLP government. It is about every successive government that we've had since independence. They all operate in the same structure, right? And therefore, in my mind, simply changing the government is not necessarily the answer if the structure doesn't change. Because you can replicate some of these problems, right? So if the change is going to lead to, then we can get a different outcome. And if this government is prepared to make these changes, then we can get different outcomes. And so I do think that it's incumbent on all of us as citizens, those of us in the diaspora as well who care about Jamaica, who love Jamaica. If we feel we need to go in this direction, we must make our voice heard. And I think it's that echoing of the voices. I mean, there are lots of people listening right now. I mean, none of us individually have any simple, easy answer on the way forward. We all have ideas, and we have to kind of, work together and see how we can pull them together. Right now, as the government is trying to respond to this Hurricane Melissa, they're turning to individuals and organizations, and they're asking for help. That speaks to the magnitude of the problem we have, and we will continue to have going forward. That it is not simply about what the government can do, and certainly not about what central government can do, right? But it will require all of us, central, local communities, to come together in discussion, in dialogue, with action, with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora across the world, to work out these solutions and the way forward.
Professor Hamilton, I want to ask you this question though. But before I do that, I want to say something about the chat room here. Deputy Prime Minister can only act if the Prime Minister is ill or if the Prime Minister is on official business. If the seat of the Prime Minister is vacant, it doesn't mean Chan can act. Somebody else can act as Prime Minister too. Isn't that so, Professor?
Well, there are provisions within the Constitution. I think one could look carefully about what happens when a seat becomes vacant. Those provisions are there in terms of the timeliness in which there is a recall. There's been an issue with respect to the timing of that. I should be careful not to suggest that it speaks to the time. It doesn't speak to the time. And in fact, those are some of the constitutional changes that we're suggesting need to be in place, where it's not just vacant for 2 years or 3 years, right? So those provisions are there, and that with respect to the there is a process in which a temporary prime minister can come into being. Remember, the prime minister ultimately is determined by the majority in the House that supports an individual who has a seat, and so that decision can be made in the absence of a prime minister. So there's a lot that can happen with respect to filling that gap if the outcome is what you're suggesting it could be. But I am suggesting that issue is not the same as having to deal with a structure of government in which, for example, oversight arrangement by a legislator leads to the removal of a prime minister. That's a whole different kind of conversation, because first you have to have the oversight, and you have to have legislators with the power to be able to make that decision. And it's not just parliamentarians as well. It also is about an arrangement with respect to the party, because the party kind of have to support those moves. And there's that back and flow in terms of, the support or lack thereof of a prime minister who the parliamentarians say is not fit to lead. And you've seen, for example, in Britain, a prime minister being moved for just being incompetent.
Yes.
That was the story of Liz Truss, So though that is significant, that the legislator has real power. The cabinet is simply a committee of the parliament, and the parliamentarians actually run parliament, and cabinet is in fact accountable to the parliamentarians.
So Professor Hamilton, for instance, saying that somebody, the party itself, put up, say, let's say Christopher Tufton, or let's say Tom Tavares Winston, and the Governor General said he doesn't fit to be it. Can that happen?
Repeat that, please.
For instance, saying that the Jamaica Labour Party put up Christopher Tufton as to become the prime minister, the leader of the party, then the prime minister.
If he has the full confidence of the majority in parliament,
right?
Yes.
And our Tom Tavares Winston or whatever. Well, no, Tom can't, because Tom's not an elected member of parliament. Yeah, Tom cannot go there. But Christopher Tufton, can the Governor General himself say, no, I don't want that person?
No, well, that's not what the rules allow. The rules allow that the Governor General appoints whoever the majority of parliamentarians agree should be prime minister. There's no discretion there.
Professor Hamilton, in a couple of minutes that we have, leave here, because I know you have to run. It's about 1 o'clock now over there where you are. Talk to us some more about the effect Hurricane Melissa have on Jamaica, and also, as we wind down this conversation, the constitution of this country. How, the way going forward, what do you suggest should be done to enlighten the Jamaican people some more about the reform of the constitution for the people, of the people, and by the people? If I make any sense in asking that.
Yeah, well, let me there are lots of ways to describe the devastation that, Hurricane Melissa brought. Perhaps the biggest numbers at this point is, 30% of the economy lost, 30% of GDP is gone. And we estimate, I think I've heard an updated estimate of 15 billion US dollars.
Over 2 trillion Jamaican dollars.
Right. The World Bank had estimated about 9. I think that is now updated to about 15 billion. And so we're talking about significant impacts, and it will take a lot to go forward. And I think that's why this conversation is important, because the question is, do we go back to where we were? And at an individual level, yes, people want to go back to some degree of normalcy. A lot of this is too much changes and upheaval is not. Most people can't take that on, and none of these constitutional change discussion is about now. It is about the future. And that one of the reasons I wrote this article as well is that I wanted Jamaicans to see a link between the Constitution and these issues that affect people's lives, because too often people think about the Constitution as something lawyers talk about, and it's too hard, and they never read the Constitution and they don't understand it, and so on and so on. But I'm trying to make a simple point that the constitutional changes can be made to better protect Jamaicans during a hurricane, right? It boils down to that. And it can, by empowering Jamaicans to be involved in the decisions that affect them directly. And I think if we think about Constitution that way, then it's not a strange thing. It's not just about the head of state. It's not just about a court of appeal. It's that too, but in a way so that people can see the direct impact on themselves. It really is about power sharing. It's about the power to make decisions to affect your lives. And I think if we think about it that way and we see the urgency of this kind of change, then we ought not to relegate the constitutional reform discussions to second tier to this recovery process, which is going to take a long time, right? I think we have to see that part of this recovery process is to recover from a structure of government that is not suited and ill-equipped to meet the needs of our people. And therefore, as we prepare for the next hurricane, we ought to have a different structure of government in place.
Professor Hamilton,
we have to look at the Constitution as well as other laws and regulations that can move us closer to that end.
Professor Hamilton, I want to ask you this question before you go, though. Would you, let me put it this way, a devastation happening in our country, one would have think that the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition could have a joint venture in surveying the damage and give joint press conferences on it. Would you say that the country is divided because of that?
Divided because of?
And the two of them is not on the level of joining each other to go and look at the damage. One is saying something, the other one is saying something else, and the committees are set up, but there's no opposition party. There's opposition members in the committee pertaining to the relief of Hurricane Melissa.
Let me say that there are many divisions right now. There are lots of divisions that are taking place right now because people are responding in different ways. The ones we see at the level of government has to do with this conversation about inclusion and exclusion of the opposition.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's necessarily the major decision because there are pre-existing divisions that it is in our society. There are divisions that are along class lines. There's a division between Kingston and the rest of the Jamaican. There's all kinds of divisions that exist. And I would suggest that many of them are playing out right now simultaneously. I've heard about the Kingston, rest of the country divide. I've heard it played out a lot because, there's one concern. What if the hurricane hit Kingston? And capacity of Kingstonians to respond in the way they're able to respond now was there. And therefore, does that say that the rest of the country need to be set up such that if Kingston was in the same situation as the West, that the rest of the country could help us in Kingston, So there are lots of divisions that exist and we have to find a way to work it out. I hope that the government will come together and continue to, let me just say, I want to be, I'm not sure about the continue, but let me just say, we'll come together at this crucial time. Opposition, ruling party, come together and paint a perspective to Jamaicans in this moment that the politicians are able and capable of working together in the interest of our people. I think that's a profound message that we could take out. Now, I understand that both political parties have just come out of an election campaign. So I understand that, and I understand the posturing and so on, and we're seeing some of that. But as things begin to settle down and it becomes very clear that this is for the long haul. This is not a quick fix problem, right? That is, as we put these solutions together and we work out the way forward, that we will see a more united government, both internal to the arms of government. I want to say that as well, because we see, the silos that exist. And, if we could come together as opposition, and importantly, come together with the people of Jamaica. Many of us who are working in different places and spaces trying to address this problem. And, find a way to collaborate in a way that's less divisive. I think we'll come out of this thing much better.
One final question, I'll make you go now. One final question, Professor. You spoke about the diaspora has been doing a tremendous job in helping our fellow Jamaicans back home. In the reform of the Constitution, Professor Hamilton, do you think that members of the Jamaican diaspora should have a say in how the government of Jamaica is being run? And in the sense of Jamaicans in the diaspora should be able to vote?
Yeah, well, the matter of voting is a very interesting issue. And, there are many ways to get involved in voting. I think members of the diaspora literally came to Jamaica and vote. And there are provisions in the Constitution now that enables people, if you have residence in Jamaica, if you comply with the current arrangement, you can vote. So there's that. Whether we want a different arrangement for voting is to be determined. But I want to suggest that this should not just be a conversation about the national elections. It also is a conversation about local government elections. And I think that if people in the diaspora are thoughtful about this approach to decentralizing, many people in the diaspora, they love Jamaica, they're Jamaicans, but they're really very concerned about the communities they're from. And therefore, they would want to have a say in local government decisions about their parish, about their communities. right? And it's in that sense, I think we'll be all better off if members of the diaspora could join that local decision-making process, right? And partner with community organizations, with local businesses, with local, with parish councils, etc., to address the specific needs that they're concerned about. And I think that's a much more effective partnership because it gets exactly to the communities that the diaspora wants to help.
Professor Hamilton,
strengthens the capacity of local government and community organizations to function.
Professor Hamilton, I know I'm not going to take any calls, but a good friend of ours is on the phone here, and he wants to ask you a question. Mystic from the Mystic Sensation. Mystic, go ahead and ask Professor Hamilton a question, quick. She got to run.
Okay. First and foremost, Professor, I want to say, thank you for coming on, right? And pushing us through some of the information that you are utilizing, right, which is good. But I want to add my 2 cents to the conversation before we go. For me, as it relates to us as a society, I think we have to deal with the core problem, right, that plague us from ever since we gained independence, right, which is one, right, ignorance of our political process, right, and for people who are educated, right, tertiary level advanced, those people sit on the fence, right, observe wrongdoing being taking place, and scared to call it out. And this is why we have a society like this. Now, let me say this to you. If we are to do a poll in Jamaica right now and ask many Jamaicans, right, how many persons think that, okay, the political process, right, is something that they have to participate in, right, because it is important to change lives depending on how you vote and voting for policies, right? We need to do a poll like that and see how many persons, you understand, would say whether or not the politics is important for them to understand, right, the civic nature, right, of the politics and able to make the right decision and vote for policy. Now, let me say this, and I'm going to ask you a question. Sorry to have to put you on the scene.
Hold on for me, Mystic. You gotta make it quick because she needs to run. It's about 1.
Okay, let me just ask her the question.
1 o'clock in where she is.
Okay, so let me show you this as it relates to a lot of people who educated, people who strong within the society, afraid to do the right thing. Let me ask Professor one question. As it relates to the Prime Minister, going 3 consecutive years without having his statutory declaration certified. What is your opinion on it?
Well, I think I'm certainly part of an advocates group that has been very vocal about the fact that that's not acceptable. We hold our elected, we ought to hold our elected officials at the highest levels of integrity. And to the extent that that problem has plagued the Prime Minister is something that we've called out. I've called out publicly for a long time, ever since the problem emerged. The electorates clearly had a different view that that is not sufficient for them to not vote the Prime Minister back into power, and they've made their decision. And I think you're absolutely right that those of us with tertiary education ought to do more. I think that many persons with tertiary education and by extension are able to benefit from the status quo continue to do so and are afraid or choose not to speak out. And I think that you're right that there's an obligation we all have. And I don't think this should be put on the shoulders of educated people or tertiary educated people, as you describe them, alone. I think it's a responsibility we all have now in an era of the internet to educate ourselves about the structure of government and the kinds of issues that we've been talking about, things like the Constitution and so on. And I say it that way because, you know, most people may not have tertiary education. I mean, one of our national heroes didn't have tertiary education, but he continues to educate all of us. And I'm talking about, of course, the Honorable Mosiah Marcus Garvey. Now, I think that, you know, as long as you can read and you're thoughtful, you ought to ensure that you understand the structure that we have and whether you think it's working for us. So I would say, you were talking earlier, Jeffrey, about the divide. You know, there is that divide as well. There's the divide of people who understand, know the flaws, see the flaws, but they're afraid to speak. Don't really understand it. And, you know, are...
Yes, can you, man, because I'm getting some feedback here with a child crying.
Okay, all right. I think the professor answer quite well, so I'm just going to read back. All right, cool.
Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Okay.
Professor, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wrapping up by saying that he's pointed to, I think, quite correctly, one of the divides that exist in our society, that they're tertiary educated people who understand the issues, know the problems, see the problems, and are afraid to speak. And a big reason has to do with the fear of, you know, losing a privileged position in society, you know? And so, and there are others who don't really understand the problem, don't necessarily see all the issues connected in the way that perhaps we ought to. And so will perhaps continue to make less than optimal decisions. Let me put it that way. I don't want to say wrong or right decisions because I don't want to paint the view and the perspective that, you know, tertiary educated people have all the answers. We have one set of answers. The majority of Jamaicans have another set of answers, and those answers come from their experience. And experiential knowledge is valuable. In fact, it's right now the critical thing we need to get to the people who need it most.
Indeed.
Because our neighbors know who living next door, who needs help, who doesn't need help. That's not an academic kind of discussion, you know, and we can use all kind of scientific tools to try to pin down where the help is needed. But the specific granular information is right there in the heads of people who live in communities and know, you know, where the tree is blocking and which gully needs cleaning and, you know, which sinkhole has appeared and so on and so on. That information is there, and that's the information that is valuable now, that needs to get in the hands of people who can make the key decisions. And I'm suggesting that we want to share up that decision-making power such that the people who have this experiential knowledge, this social knowledge that is valuable, can wade in. And it's when you bring that information together with the experienced and the professional knowledge of tertiary educated people who can use science. A lot of tertiary education is about understanding science. Sciences of social sciences as well as physical sciences. And it's when you bring that together, we can get better decisions. One of the things in the decision-making process why the centralization is limited is because people, when you sit in a centralized position, you look at the country as a whole and you make general decisions. You know, you do surveys, and these are general decisions, and they're useful, but they're not enough, because what the general decision-making capacity does is miss the granular information at the level of communities and homes. You know, they're not going to they're not going to easily capture what is happening to somebody who is pregnant in a community that does not have any health facility within 20 miles of that home. So the local knowledge and experience can fill that gap. And it's when you bring that together in a parliamentary discussion where our MPs and the members of the executive are there, they'll hear it. And that gives us, I think, better outcomes.
I want to say thanks to Professor Rosalea Hamilton for coming on the program. Whenever she comes over here, our Rattigan's program, we learn so much. And I'm going to talk to her off air because she had promised something to come back on air to talk to us about something. But let me talk to her off air pertaining to this something. Professor Hamilton, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come onto the Mek Wi Talk program to teach us about the Constitution and the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa and the lessons that we're learning, and what shall we do to reform our country's constitution. And when you have individuals like you who continue to speak out for the fundamental rights of the Jamaican people, we must lift our hat to you, because not often that we have people will come out, in your neck of the wood, will come out and speak out for the common man who live below crossroad, as the late Mutty Perkins would have said. Professor Hamilton, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That was Professor Rosalea Hamilton, who comes on our program, and I'm telling you, whenever she comes on this program, I learn so much from her. I am willing to take about 2 calls or 3 calls for those who may think that this discussion was enlightening. Discussion was something that learned from it, and also what are we learning from the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa? Has the government performed well in helping the people? Have they? And also, this afternoon, or tonight rather, I was supposed to be having a simulcast broadcast with a television station in a part of the Caribbean, but I messed up on something and I didn't do it correctly. So come next week, the Mek Wi Talk program will be having a simulcast broadcast. I won't call the name as yet, to another station in a country. One moment for me. Good afternoon or good night. Welcome to the program, Miss P.
Good night, Jeffrey.
How
good
you
night
doing,
program.
my darling?
Educative, informative as usual.
Yes.
There, man. There. I enjoy the whole water program. Very sweet.
Thank you.
Me get more knowledge as to the Constitution and how Parliament run and what can be done and what cannot be done and how it can be done. So, now, what along?
No, you can talk, Miss P. You can talk. Go ahead. Anything on your mind, talk about it, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Big up yourself and big up wife and family.
I will.
There. And I cloud, man. I don't feel so well. So.
What happened to you?
It's a good.
You having the flu?
You
don't have to talk on here. You don't have to talk on here. You don't have to talk on here. I think I know what you're talking about.
Stress everything.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Yes. There.
Yes.
Me I give God thanks. I'm glad to hear for and he phone them just come up back good.
Yes.
I'm try to reach out to you, but his phone them now go on with them.
Oh Lord. If
yeah, but me there, man.
Yes. How your son doing?
All right. If you talk to you after here, you take it hard. You tell what I mean, I know.
God have mercy. All right, Miss P. Thank you.
Every time you see every time you see one cloud dark up, you get remember something, so it cannot shake him up away.
Yes. All right, we'll talk after.
Anyway, we will talk.
Yes,
yeah, man.
Yes.
All right.
The government is having walking in divine purpose. How you doing? Welcome. Welcome. As I said, we were supposed to have a simulcast broadcast to a television station and a website in another part of the Caribbean. And for some unknown reason, yours truly messed it up. So hopefully come next week, the Mek Wi Talk program will be broadcasting on a television station and a website. I won't call the name of the countries yet. I won't call the name of the program or the company I'm going to broadcast with. So come next week, Monday, we will be going live. The Mek Wi Talk program will be going live into a country and all into a company and a television station that broadcasts into a country that I love so much. I call it my second home. I think you all know what I'm talking about. So come next week, we'll be broadcasting there. And once more, I want to say thanks to Professor Rosalea Hamilton for coming on. Tomorrow, we will be broadcasting live tomorrow. We'll be broadcasting live tomorrow. So tomorrow evening, we'll be coming on. And hopefully we'll be having a special guest coming on tomorrow also. I want to say thank you all for coming on. I won't stay long. I won't stay long at all because I have to run. Walking in Divine Purpose. You have something to put up on the thing here. GoFundMe for my good friend Isaac Buchanan. Please put it up. There's a GoFundMe for Isaac Buchanan. Donate. Walking in Divine Purpose, you have the ability to do it. So put it up for me, please. I had promised. You know what? Hey, I have some students, you see, man. They're smart, you know. And whenever I say anything, they pick up what I'm talking about. I won't answer you. I won't answer about the Cayman Islands at all. Anyway, Walking in Divine Purpose, please put up the GoFundMe from my good friend Isaac Buchanan. I want him to, he's somebody who is one person who I can tell you I respect him because you know why? When you have Isaac who has, reached out, not because he's a lawyer, you have some of the lawyers in this country. Don't remember where they're coming from. But Isaac remember where he's coming from, and so as many lawyers remember they're coming from. And, he is reaching out to the members of the Jamaican diaspora to assist him in helping people in Portland. And also, I want to ask members of the Jamaican diaspora to assist Member of Parliament Dr. Dayton Campbell. Dr. Dayton Campbell for Eastern Westmoreland. Dr. Campbell needs help. So I'm asking people who are out there who is the sound of my voice. We're going to see if we can get Dr. Campbell on the program here. Please, the people of Eastern Westmoreland is in need of help. That is the real ground. Don't get me wrong now. This is ground zero. But Westmoreland need help. And Dr. Dayton Campbell alone cannot do it. We're asking Jamaicans overseas who is from Westmoreland. You have some very rich family who is from Westmoreland who lives overseas. I won't call any name. But please, see what we can do to assist Dr. Dayton Campbell. I'm going to reach out to him and ask if he has a GoFundMe, or what can be done in a sense to assist people down there. Can somebody adopt a community? Can somebody adopt somebody who need a house? I see some container houses that they're putting down there. Can anybody overseas in the Jamaican diaspora assist in doing that? Because it is not right for our people tonight here. Many of them is left out to the element of the night. Element of the night, and it hurts. It hurts. So see what we can do to assist the people of Eastern Westmoreland. The Member of Parliament is Dr. Dayton Campbell, and other members of Parliament who need help. I know Mikhail Phillips may need help in this area too. Other members of parliament really need help. You have Nikisha Burchell and others who need help. So we're asking people to assist. And also for my good friend Isaac Buchanan. I wonder if Walking Divine Purpose is hearing me. I need to get the GoFundMe. Let me see if I can do it from my end. I think I have it here. The GoFundMe for Isaac Buchanan to assist the people of Portland. I would love for her to put it up in, but I don't know what's going on, and I don't think she's hearing me. I don't think she's hearing me. Let me see if I can do it from my end here. Just a moment here, please. This is the GoFundMe. Yes, I think I have it here now. Let me go here into the Mek Wi Talk chat room and put it up. There it is. Thank you so much, Walking in Divine Purpose. You and I have to talk. We need to figure out something here on this channel also. So there is the GoFundMe. Go there and donate to assist Member of Parliament Isaac Buchanan in Eastern Portland. Is it Eastern or Western Portland? Yeah, in Eastern Portland. Assist him in helping people to get, zinc and so forth. And also those who need food items and clothing and bed and so forth. This thing has hit us hard. That's hit us hard, and we need to assist each other. So those who can give, please give. Please give. Those who can give, please give. And see what else we can do to assist our people here. As I said before, I'm not going to stay long. It is now 8:21. Join me tomorrow, God's willing, on the Mek Wi Talk program. Walking Divine Purpose, yes, you. We will be broadcasting tomorrow. I'm trying to get a special guest to come on tomorrow, but also come next week, Monday. God spare our life. The Mek Wi Talk program will be simulcasting with another with a television station in a country in the Caribbean here. I won't call any name. So we'll be simulcasting with them. And also we're hoping, because I'm being told that the Jam Talk Vibes internet radio station is down. We will be bringing back that up. Hopefully, by the help of God, we'll bring it back up. I just need some help to someone to moderate it for me. But pretty soon we'll be doing that. So for those who want to listen to us on the World Wide Web, you're gonna have it coming up soon. Come next week, Monday. We will be going on a different platform also. We won't be leaving this platform here. We'll have more people coming on. So little by little, the Mek Wi Talk program will be going places. I want to say thanks on behalf of Walking Divine Purpose, on behalf of all of us here, the producers of this program. I'm Jeffrey Tavares saying so long. Until you hear my voice again, may God bless you. May God bless our island home, Jamaica land we love. Please see what we can do to assist our fellow countrymen who's in need. Those in Westmoreland, some in Kingston, some in St. Anne's, all over the place, Trelawney. I mean, a friend of mine said to me, Tavares, it is to see this on social media, to fly over in a helicopter and a plane. Don't speak justice. It's when you come down on the ground and you walk in the nook and cranny of St. Elizabeth and the nook and cranny of Eastern Westmoreland. I saw Dayton Campbell cry in the parliament for his people. We were not organized. We're not, We're not organized. We're not ready for these things. Nothing was planned. And not only that, as I said in the beginning of my opening commentary on this program, one would have believed that the Prime Minister would have addressed the nation and called for a national day of prayer. I saw they have a telethon last night. It's good to have it. But how many of the members of parliament donate? How many of the members of parliament truly put their money up and say, okay, it's for my people? How many of them? How many of them? I've been saying that this program from ever since this hurricane hit, that a humanitarian crisis is looming in Western Jamaica. It's not looming anymore. It is there. It is there. It is there. Jamaicans, we need. I'm not criticizing anyone, because right now we are in serious trouble in this country. Serious trouble. And our people is left out to the element. I want to say publicly on this platform tonight, there's a young man who I must lift my hat to. A young man who many people don't like when he speaks. Many people of the vum vavant and the effluence of society don't like him. But I must say, Andre Stevenson, Andre Stefano Stevenson, young man, I lift my hat to you tonight. You're doing a great job. You're doing a tremendous job to help the people. You are deserving of more than an honor for what you're doing for the people of our country. Andre Stefano Stevenson, I remember the day when I first met you. Many of you don't know this. When I was living in Kingston, at Mona Great House, we had a house at Mona Great House, and it's still there. I used to walk from Mona Great House to in front of Jamaica College, because I used to love to buy fruits from a man there who used to love to sell fruits. And at that time, Andre Stevenson was involved in the Labour Party. Holness was Prime Minister. Holness was opposition leader then. And there was a big thing going on up by University of the West Indies. And I went out to the place to buy fruits, because I went walking to buy fruits. And Andre came up to me with a pamphlet and said, you must come over. I don't know Andre, He just walked up to me and said, sir, the opposition leader will be up by University of the West Indies tonight. Come up there and listen to what he's going to say and whatever. And I took it from him. And I never talked to Andre since. When he started going on social media, so I realized who he was. Because when he handed it to me, I wasn't thinking about it. But what Andre is doing now, what Andre Stefano Stevenson and the Partner Draw TV is doing now for the people of our country, I lift my hat to him. And I say to him tonight, God will forever bless you, young man. May God protect you. May God guide you. And may your store basket never empty. And you do this out of the love of your heart for your people. You don't do this for recognition. And I respect you for that. I want to say thank you. Thank you for helping our people. And for those in the Jamaican diaspora who has donated to Andre, thank you. For those who's donating to the One Legal Defense Foundation for us to pack this container to go down, thank you too. Thank you. But I lift my hat to a young man who many do not like him right here on social media. They don't like me and I really don't care. And I put my temper on the chicken back bonfire. You see? I respect and I lift my hat to Andre Stefano Stevenson. Andre, one love, my brother. Continue doing the great job. The man went out of the way to get water. He has 1,000 cases of water tag drive going. I see where the opposition leader went and donated some water to him. Andre, you're doing a great job. A remarkable job for your people. One love, my brother. Walking in divine purpose. You and I need to talk. Call me off here. I want to say thank you all very much, and thanks to those who continue to support this Mek Wi Talk program. This program has some changes coming, and we are working on that. It's going to take a little while because it's just me alone. I don't really have anybody to really help assist. Just me alone. So, you know, and I'm pretty much, I'm going to get somebody to start assisting me. But come next week, Monday, we will be broadcasting simulcast with another program, also a website and a TV station. I want to say thank you all very much for coming on. So join us next week for the Mek Wi Talk Current Affair program, because every Monday night, it's the Mek Wi Talk Current Affair program with yours truly, Jeffrey T. So join me tomorrow for normal programming. We'll be coming on with another guest. Until you hear my voice again, may God bless you. May God bless our island home, Jamaica land we love. One love, everybody. Jah-guide, walking in divine purpose. Thank you all for coming on. Remember to go to the thing that Isaac Buchanan has going on. What do they call it again? The GoFundMe. Thank you. Lord, I'm getting young. Getting really young, you know. The GoFundMe. So go there and help Isaac Buchanan to assist some people. And go over to the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation and donate. We're trying to load a container. We are not trying. We're loading a container to send down to Jamaica. We'll tell you some more about it. Mr. Ortega will talk to you some more about it. And also, you know that I am running in the Jamaican diaspora. So come next year, you can vote for me to change certain things within the Jamaican diaspora. Hopefully, we get the vote. But you know, for those who are praying, remember me in your prayers. I truly need your prayers at this time. For those who are praying, truly need your prayers. My family do need your prayers at this time. I won't go into any details, but just pray for myself and my family, all right? Until you hear my voice again once more, God bless you. Good night, everybody.
Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, make we talk. Make we talk. Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Mek Wi Talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents Yard and Broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth, make we reason, Mek Wi Talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va, no upper echelon, nobody is not above the law. As long as it not help Jamaica, Mek Wi Talk. Mek Wi Talk.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, Mek Wi Talk, my people, Mek Wi Talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Mek Wi Talk, people, Mek Wi Talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, Mek Wi Talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Mek Wi Talk.